I said, good evening. My name is Michael Longshore. A little bit about myself. I live in north central Texas, just north of Dallas, Texas. I've known, David Quigley, who's here tonight. I think David's here. He was here. And I've known David for about 25 plus years. I've known Pat and Patrick for a great many years. I've been involved in Huna since about 1977. And, what's going on. That's about it. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on my background. We could invite you. You can go to my website, michaellongshore.com, and you can bring a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and see what my story is. But what I found fascinating about the Huna and why I practice Huna is that it was almost, well, actually not almost, it is a precursor to things that we know, like alchemical hypnotherapy, Jungian psychology. All of this were born out of these basic principles that we call, or we've named, the Huna, or secret teaching. To be perfectly clear, in Hawaii, they know what the word Huna means, but they really had nothing in their culture that was called Huna. But Max Freedom Long, who rediscovered the Huna in the early 1920s, coined it the Huna, or secret teaching. What we found so fascinating and interesting is most of what we know in the Huna, and you hear me say the word know more than believe, because we practice something that we can actually see results, and that's pretty exciting. So we don't have to worry about having faith, we just know. Anyway, the Polynesians, the story goes, brought a knowledge that's about 35,000 years old, and that's a guesstimate, pre-Atlantis, pre-Lemuria. And they were isolated in the Polynesians. They got there coming from west to east, and they had a very simple lifestyle. They were island people, so they had unique living situations. They had to really learn how to cooperate, because if you didn't like being in the Ohana, I guess your option was get in a boat or swim. And so they learned to get along in some very interesting ways. The kahunas, or keepers of the secret, kahuna also meaning master. You could be a master doctor, master nurse, a master alchemist, a master carpenter, a master baker, and that would technically be considered also a kahuna. Well, the Hawaiians, the women and the men had equal stature, kind of a novel idea, right? So we had women kahunas and we had men kahunas. And usually a grandson, a granddaughter, sometimes a daughter or son, it would be in a certain lineage, and they would learn from the elders, and they would start in childhood learning the craft of being that particular kind of kahuna. Because we had kahunas for relationship therapy, we had kahunas for financial difficulties, we had kahunas for healing, we had kahunas for the weather. If the crops weren't coming in properly, we had kahunas that could pray over that. We could bring fish in from the sea, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a practical system, one that we're now rediscovering, and many of our psychologists, I would say a little kudo to David Quigley, he brought forth alchemical hypnotherapy. I have a little chart up here about what we know or believe in the Huna. Can you all see this behind me? Not really, huh?
Yeah.
You can see it. Okay, we have three selves, and you hear a lot of talk about this. You have a higher self, we believe, we know, a middle self, and a basic self. Those three parts comprise 10 bodies. So I call this pre-conference room, David, if you can hear me, if he's out there.
I can hear you.
Okay, one is the higher self, one is the middle self, one's the basic self. Each self has its own level of mana. Starting with the higher self, we have mana loa. The middle self is mana mana, and the basic self is mana. Now, each of the selves also has its own aka body, which is like an etheric substance, Spirit, the spiritualists call it Puri Spirit. And then all of these Akka bodies, the mana, and the three cells all fit into a body. So why I call it pre-conference room? Well, we have a lot more characters now that we can work with, but in their system, it was basically 10 parts. So any questions about that? No. Okay. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to work with experiencing the vital force or mana, and we're going to experience our own vital force. We're going to learn how to measure it. We're going to learn how to crank up the voltage, have some fun with that. Before I get going, I just want to say we've cataloged at least 60 different names for mana, or Holy Spirit, Wakanda. The list just goes on and on. Pick any great culture, pick any tribe or nation, they all have a name for mana. In the Huna, mana is basically life force, Holy Spirit, if you will. When I work with clients as an alchemical hypnotherapist, a lot of this stuff I just use for my own reference. Once in a while, I get a client who's very either aware and or open to some of these discussions, and we have some fun. We maybe, look at how much of this plays into our everyday life. This thing about having life force and increasing life force. So I asked you to bring a pencil or a pen and paper. It's really important. I'll tell you later why it was important to have a pen. Everybody get a pen and a piece of paper? Okay. I want you to write your name down. Now, we're not going to ask you to mail this in or hold it up to the screen or anything. Just your signature. Put your signature, not print it. Or I guess if you don't use that type of writing, you do print, it would be okay to print, as long as it's your name, your given name. Okay, now that we got that done, we can kind of move that piece of paper a little bit to the side, and we can look around for our pendulum. I have a pendulum here that pretty much any object that's like a pendulum. It could be a wax ball on the end of a string. I've used keychains, necklaces, what have you, but anything that you can get sort of a balancing point with. If you're right-handed, hold it in your right hand. If you're left-handed, probably hold it in your left hand. Place it over, it'll get about, I'd say, 3 inches or so from the object. I'm right-handed. Place the tip of the pendulum about an inch above the palm of the opposite hand, the opposing hand. And, try and find a comfortable position. The arm probably will get a little bit tired. So we just want to find a natural position there. And I'm going to say that from your basic self, from your middle self actually, to your basic self, we'd like to instruct your basic selves now to start measuring the amount of life force that you are currently maintaining. And the way it might start is it may be a little bit swing to the side, it may go in a circle, but your signature, your body energy has its own signature, and it will respond accordingly. It knows how to do this, and if it doesn't, it'll learn real quickly. And this is basically not a pendulum class. That could come later, but because in Huna, we have a way of using a pendulum that incorporates all the different cells. So we can talk to all of them using a pendulum if you want. Now, down the road, most people get fairly proficient with a pendulum, and they go from a kind of a believing to a knowing, and a lot of intuition starts to kick in, and they maybe don't need a pendulum just for everything. It's a nice way to start. I wish I was in Walgreens today having a discussion with my pharmacist, and she basically told me she was a PhD, and I said, well, so's my cardiologist, and she said, am I supposed to have one of those too? And I said, well, he just said that you're overcharged for all your prescription drugs, thank you. And so we weren't on a very good ground there. But what I didn't see in Walgreens is any kind of device to measure my life force. I can do my temperature. I can measure my blood pressure, my pulse. They have all these neat devices, all this technology, but I didn't see anything on the shelf that said, here, measure your vital life force, that thing that's keeping you alive, keeping you in the vertical. Oh, making all these parts work? Okay, fine. So has everybody kind of got that? Did you count the number of rotations, the number of times that your pendulum moved?
I have a question. How do we ask a question?
Okay,
Oh,
question.
yes. So you put the pendulum 3 inches above your signature?
No, above your hand.
Oh, above your hand. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, because I didn't get anything when I did that, but when I put it above my signature, I did. So.
Okay, well, you know, something different for everybody, but
Yeah.
the goal here is just try it above your hand. And there's no right or wrong to this. I'm not going to give you a number or how many times it should go in a circle or how many times it should go back and forth. But however many times it does that, just go ahead and kind of count that and write that number down.
Like in 30 seconds or a minute, how many rotations? I mean,
We'll go for like 2 minutes, and you'll kind of know that it may start slowly. It'll build up a little more aggressively, and when it's time for those gyrations to slow down, it'll start to slow down. Now, what we're really doing here now is we are actually communicating with our basic self, and that basic self in Hawaiian is called the Unihipili, and it's got its own personality, it's got its own jobs, it's got all its own things that it takes care of for us. In alchemy, I would say it'd be like an inner child. But that child loves rituals and is fascinated with doing things just like this, keeps it entertained. One of the things you'll notice oftentimes, even listening to me, if you're going to start to get bored, probably a good indication that your basic self has said, this isn't interesting anymore. I'm going to wander over here in this library and look at these memories. Maybe I can find something I can keep Michael up with all night. Something that he just thought he'd worked out in his previous alchemical sessions. So having a little fun there. But the basic self is like a child, and it's in charge of our memories, and it likes to be given assignments. It likes to be a part of the team. So once you've got those gyrations counted, let me know. Write your number down. Does anybody not get the result?
Is this in the period of a minute?
A minute's good. 2 minutes. David, stop at 300. But most of us we're going to be naturally charged with vital force, and I'm going to give you a little history on why this is so important. At least what we know to be true in the Huna. Now, anything that I say we know to be true, obviously we want to predicate that with go and test it for yourself. Everything should be tested, be provable, and not just because I said so. It's just I just know certain things work, and I'm not going to talk to you about things that I haven't experienced for myself or watched others experience. Is Marty still out there? Oh, maybe we lost Marty.
No, Marty's there.
Okay, yeah. I'm just learning how to use this Zoom thing. It's amazing, really amazing. So does everybody kind of? Oh, we still got some people going here. Boy, that pendulum is just cranking along over there. Now, I wouldn't advocate doing this in Walgreens. I know my pharmacist, who I'll probably go back tomorrow and say, it was just a bad hair day. Okay, you too. Oh, all right. But just to of course, I was out with a client today. I'm talking where people are still measuring, and I had something happen I never had before. A lawyer hired me. I went out to I own an inspection service. I went out to the job site. I got down on the floor, and that's what I inspect, and I'm cutting pieces of wood out of the floor. And the lady of the house got down, laid right down next to me, and put her head on my ear. I mean, joined the two heads. And I looked at her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I'm just fascinated by what you're doing." Now my wife's standing there, kind of watching it, saying, "Oh well, here we go again. Something weird's happening." And so I won't tell you the rest of the story, but it was kind of interesting. It's just been weird days. And usually people just say, "Can I hold your hand? I know I'll feel better if I hold your hand." This lady wanted to touch heads. So, maybe that only happens in Texas. I don't know. Everybody's pretty well done, right? Okay. Well, we have to blame it on something. You know, we're all kind of weird down here. I mean, really weird.
I wonder if that's the way Texas is, because, you know, I'm headed down there in March to your neighborhood and teaching for 2.5 weeks. I hope it's crazy down there.
We're looking forward to it. We're excited. This is going to be a good time. So now we've got that number. We kind of put it on the side. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the value of collecting mana. Is everybody pretty comfortable with the word mana? Nobody out there saying, no. There's a part of me that says, no, that's not right, or I'd rather say Holy Spirit. However you want to envision the life force, whatever you think the life force is, I mean, be my guest. I'm just using the term mana. Of course, you know, in the Old Testament, they were pretty good about talking about mana also, right? And no big secret there. They weren't hiding anything. You know, in some of our teachings, some of our works, we study about what we call the Huna code in religion. We have books on what Jesus taught in secret. I use them to go to sleep usually. If I'm having a little trouble sleeping, I'll start reading them, and I just pass out. And I'm getting better. I can get in like 10 or 12 pages if I start early. It's interesting material if you're a linguist. If you like looking at this word means this, and now let's go in about 4 different cultures and let's break it all down. I mean, that's kind of fun. My mentor in Huna, Dr. Ortha Wingo, was a PhD in languages, basically Greek, Latin, I think Aramaic also. We called him everybody's dad. He a great teacher, great professor, and was a gift to us because he really looked at words and the power of words and you know, where did they come from, what did they mean. So mana or life force is the very thing that we all use to start our day, live through our day, and finish our day. Have you ever been in a situation, this is I think a point where I'd like to ask everyone this question, have you been in a situation where perhaps you got on a bus or you were standing in a public area and somebody, you know, brushed past you, maybe made contact with you, you kind of felt your energy drop down a little bit? Have you ever been working with a client and after a session, you found yourself saying, "Man, I'm wore out. I don't know what happened." And the client walked out saying, "I'm feeling great." Well, you know, we have experiences like this, and we know in the Huna that a good story is the biblical story where Jesus had somebody reach out and touch the hem of his robe or his garment, and he turned around and said, "Who touched me?" I felt an issuance of my life force, is what he's saying, run out of me. So this is what this pendulum's about, and everything else is we start to get in touch with, like what David would talk about, what the Berkeley Psychic Institute would talk about, all these other traditions, getting to know what does it feel like, this energy in our body. And then we have the, you know, all this talk about the masculine, the feminine. It's fascinating. But tonight we're going to stay with the basics. We don't want to overthink this. So what have we done so far? We've written our name down. We've swung a pendulum around. We've talked about producing mana. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when the movement is faint and it barely moves,
Right.
that doesn't seem very good. Am I right?
Well, do you have a DNR?
What?
If you knew me, you know it's a joke.
I didn't get it. Okay.
Well, my doctor asked me the other day, she's 37, and she said, "Do you have a DNR yet?" I said, "No, do you?" She started laughing. She thought it was funny. But anyway, that is not anything to be concerned about.
Okay.
Maybe just the beginning of starting your communication.
Oh, okay.
How do you feel about it?
I have a question too.
Yes.
this is a very new concept for me, but why I felt very burning. My left hand was burning.
Left hand is burning. Okay. Hello.
Like really heavy and burning.
Okay. So your left hand was burning. And
Yeah, because I was trying, again, it's a very new concept for me. I didn't even know what I signed for.
I like
So
your pendulum. I like your pendulum.
I did this thing. Obviously, I hold my hand like this, so
Right.
it was moving, and I felt a burning, some heavy
Okay.
stuff. I have
I just make a note of that for future reference. I don't get anything specifically about that. I think it's just something to note.
Mhm.
You know, this is, have you done this before? This type of, I think you said
no, it's the
This
first
is
time.
new. Okay. So right now I just pay attention to, you know, my hand was burning, maybe make a note. You know, I felt, you know, lighter than normal, what have you. Just anything that's a little bit different. Did anybody fail to get a gyration or a movement with their pendulum? Okay. So before we finish the class today, we're gonna show you how to increase the level of mana so that you can supply all these three parts with what it needs. Okay, so the higher self we call the Amakua. Higher self. It has its own grade or its own level of mana. The middle self, we'll keep it basic here. Middle self, we call the Uhani. And the basic self, inner child, primitive mind. I mean, there's just a whole book on what these things are known as. Okay, basic self is the Uni He Pili. So we all have them. We all got one. So right now I'm using my Uhani to consciously communicate with you. I'm analytical. I have imagination. I have certain reasoning powers, but I'm not emotional. If you see me start to go emotional, I'm down here with my Unihipili. If all the parts are working together, you can have all these things all happening at one time. But a good example is if we are with someone who's really in their head and they're just totally in their head, they can't joke, they can't, be lighthearted or what have you. They're pretty much strictly in their conscious self. That's okay, because the basic self's working 7/24. Good example is when we go to sleep, we know the Yohani may go traveling. They go to the Alchemy Institute and take some classes. I mean, it could do anything it wants to, the Akashic record. It might go visit somebody there. But the Unihipili, it runs the heart, the cardiovascular system, respiration, it's all the body functions. And guess what other job it has? It's a really neat job. The Unihipili is in charge of memory. That's right. All those memories that we say we want to either, tweak, work on, whatever, rational or irrational, Unihipili is in charge of that. It needs its own grade of mana. And all of this, all these three parts are working together. So what happens? We have a healthy diet. We get plenty of rest, plenty of fresh water. We go hiking with Quigley. We do all these neat things and we build mana. Now we know when we're physically exercising, we know that we're using mana up while we're creating it. So how do we create a surplus? How do we have not even a surplus, how do we have a reserve? That part I want to send from my basic self up to my higher self. We have a meditation. We have a quiet moment. Maybe during our power walk, we sit down, we have a meditation, and we focus on having the basic self create the extra mana. We'll show you in just a second how to do that. And we say, please make it a bit simple. Send some of this to my higher self to do what it needs to do with it. Now, the higher self, come around this way. The higher self, the Amakua, potentizes the mana in a magical way. And that's not a cop-out. We just don't know exactly how this works, but it potentizes it and creates mana loa. That is sent back down from the higher self to the middle self, the uhani, and back to the unihipili, primitive mind, basic self, inner child. Each one will get its portion. Okay, how do you know when somebody's vital force is not up to par for that individual? Anybody have an idea? How would you know somebody's vital force isn't maybe up to the level it should be? Okay, they fall asleep in the middle of the day. Possible. It's a possible indicator. They're saying to you, I felt so good when I got up this morning. I just feel really drug out. Well, then you're talking to them and you say, well, you were on the phone with your mother, right? Yeah, and she got back into all that stuff about when I was a kid. Oh, and now you just feel kind of drained. Yeah. Well, maybe some mana went out there. While I was watching the news, that's a big one. And I got caught up in that political thing, and that so-and-so, they just got to get out of office. There goes mana. Now here's a real subtle one. Middle of the night, nightmares, bad dreams. I think you're ready for this. When we leave our bodies, we don't all go to some place maybe like a magical kingdom where everything looks like somewhere over the rainbow. We might be in what's called the astral plane. And what we learn to do real quick on the astral plane is how to go out and steal mana. Because you know what that does? That makes us real. That makes us alive in the astral plane. So if I'm one of those, and again, they have the name Unihipilis, who's walking the face of the earth, the lower astral is another way of saying it. And I find out that Michael Longshore has in his memory bank a fear of heights. I may create for him a dream where he is falling. And he goes into a deep breathing and he goes into a panic mode. And he finds himself waking up saying, oh my God, I just felt like I was really falling. I'm so afraid of falling. The next thing I do is I call my alchemist and say, I got something to work on. Rather than go, oh my God, I'm a victim here. I don't go into the victim role. I say, wow, I just found out something. But what was happening is I also want to look and see, was there a discarnate who was creating fear, real or unreal, irrational or irrational, and stealing that mana? Now, that's kind of way down the road in the study of the Huna, but not too hard to understand for most people. Most people kind of get that. And we have kahunas who are trained just to work with those kind of scenarios. Everybody kind of get that? Does that seem, anybody got a question about that? You heard of vampires? Well, we know that most of that was stealing energy, not blood. But same thing, same principle, life force. Okay, so is that a little dark and gloomy? Okay, well, we're gonna get off of that. So moving along, we want to talk about two kinds of magic, and that comes into the life force business. We have low magic and we have high magic. Anybody know what low magic is? Can you tell me maybe about an experience you had where you experienced low magic? Okay, high magic? All right, moving forward, low magic, a good example would be a faith healer who is using their own mana, their own vital force to heal the client. Put the old hands on, however they do it, but it's their energy, right? High magic is when we direct everything to the higher self and the levels above the higher self, and they do the work. Novel idea. Not really. It's pretty well understood by a lot of people. So when we're working with our energy, I'm very jealous about how much energy I have. I know that I have my daily portion. Sometimes my cup runneth over, and that's a good thing. I've got extra to go around. But I would send, if somebody asked me for a healing, I would send mana to my higher self, who would then transfer it over to their higher self. They'll, you know the rules. You know, I want to heal, or may I give you a healing? May I offer you a healing? Sure. Well, I'm not going to go over and put my hands on that person. It works. Experienced a lot of those. My early days, man, I had people sitting in the living room on Saturday morning lined up so Michael could put his hands on them. Two things happened. One, by the end of the day, Michael was wasted physically. Took him 2 or 3 days to recover. And they were feeling great. But also, how long that healing lasted, I paid attention as the years went by. Sometimes it would last a couple of years, sometimes a couple of months. But when it's worked out through the higher self, in cooperation between all of our high selves, what we call the Po Amakua, that's the great company of high selves. That's your high selves, my higher self, who are all right now probably hanging out saying, wow, this is a good thing. On that level is another level of energy. And above the Po Amakua is the K Amakua. I'll go down here. It's K-E Amakua. Most people, when they pray to God, regardless of their particular faith, this is where they're aiming. But if you're hitting here, you're doing great. What do we know in the Huna about the Ke'akua? Nothing. What do we know about the Po Amakua? Maybe a little bit. But our relationship and what we believe is that if we get these 3 parts working, everything else is going to be great. So that's why I said early in the conversation, don't trouble yourself to overthink any of this. You know, just take it in small steps. 3 parts, all working together, all using this energy, this life force. Any questions? Okay, how do we increase mana? How do you guys increase mana? How do you get your juices flowing? How do you get what do you do?
Exercise,
Exercise,
pray, meditate.
take a nap.
Yeah.
Works. A shower, maybe an ice cold shower.
No. Hot shower.
Cold shower might work. Right?
Hot bath. Hot bath.
Hot bath could be wonderful.
Swimming.
Swimming.
Eating a meal.
Dancing.
Dancing, healthy diet, right?
Mm.
All these things are good. They're all positive. Okay, so what is a mana? What do we know it is? It's real simple. It's glucose. It's blood sugar. So we need a healthy diet. We need rest, pure water, exercise, in order, a sensible lifestyle, if you will, to create the blood sugar. It's been documented that one way to manage glucose or blood sugar is to do breath work. This isn't anything new. Of course, the Hawaiians knew this a long, long time ago. But now we see with our kids in school, remember the generation of Ritalin children? We put them on Ritalin and they're all, and they started saying, let's show them how to exercise, how to breathe. Wow, some amazing things happen. I see doctors now who teach their patients the 4-count breathing system. Are all of you familiar with the 4-count breathing system? Okay, anybody?
Is that when you breathe in and hold to the count of 4 and then hold and then exhale to the count of 4?
Right.
Yeah. They call it square breathing also.
Oh.
What do you call it?
Square breathing. That's what we call it when we teach the students.
Okay, square?
Square breathing. Count of 4, breathe for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4.
Right.
Hold.
Okay, great. You know it. Now, very workable, very usable.
Yeah.
Sometimes not practical. Now, we know that if we do it 16 times, that's probably the max. and then we test with our pendulum again, you'll see an increase in your gyration. Good thing. If you got the time and you got the place to do it, right on. Play some really good music, you know, put yourself in a very comfortable position. It's all wonderful. Again, the basic self, the Unihipili loves rituals. Can't tell you how often the basic self, mind included, will just get really bored with what's ever going on, and it'll just flip. And I can see it fade. It's fading away from me because it's not interested. Oh, you've done this 1,000 times before, you know, or I've heard this before, whatever. But let me suggest something to you. We know in hypnosis, I believe it's true to say, that if we imagine that we're creating life force, we actually are creating life force. Again, the basic self will respond to imagination. Imagination's on that middle self level. It's the parent who's saying to the child, okay, let's imagine we're collecting a mana. Now, the basic self might go, yeah, that's pretty cool, but let's do something. Let's have some fun and play with it. Let's make it real. Now, I could say that I've walked through the jungles of Caribbean islands in the middle of the night, being led down a path that was dark, and I went into a cabin that had 3 really large, fat, is a better term, women, who all looked like Aunt Jemima sitting there with a bunch of wooden statues and candles in the middle. And I got really scared, and I said, what am I here for? And they said, we're going to heal you. And I said, oh, well, my basic self was totally on board. I said, we're going to get healed. Amen. I'll join your church right now. I'm in. You know, a little humor there, but it had my full attention. Now that's a little extreme. We don't have those type of scenarios readily available to us, at least not in the town I live in Texas. They'd probably burn my house down. No, I didn't mean that. We're, you know, real, how can I say, normal, and what have you. So what I'd like to suggest is there's methods, and we have a course called psychometric analysis, and in that course we study psychometry in all its various forms, and we get into a lot of different things that the middle self loves, because it's like theory, it's stuff that can get proved out, that we can measure. But tonight we're going to do some measurement also. But to make it simple, I could stand with my feet maybe 2 or 3 feet apart, my hands up like this, just doing those deep, relaxed breaths, and imagining that the mana is flowing into my hand. Now I'm a guy. We say in the Huna that our energy comes from above and the feminine comes from below. Well, I believe that. Okay, that's where I'll bring in my energy. But if I'm a person who says, I believe it comes from below, bring it in from below. We have a lot of guided visualizations and meditations in all the various disciplines that do a wonderful job of helping us collect this mana. I think what I really wanted to key on tonight was it doesn't just sit idle. It's being used up. It needs to be replenished, replaced. I asked earlier, have you ever seen anybody where their mana was low? I'll give you a good example. Go into the waiting room of a Chinese medicine doctor. Bring your pendulum in. Ask them to put their hands out, measure their life force. It's not there. That's why they're at that hospital, that doctor, because they will use acupuncture, they will use various medicinals, and they'll bring that life force back up in their way, in their tradition. Seen that over and over again. But we want to gather, so I'm going to ask all of you to join with me. You can have your eyes open or closed and imagine, visualize you're bringing in the mana and you're increasing your mana. We're not going to deal tonight with war sticks and stuff like that, where I can take mana, energize it, and throw it at somebody and knock them flat on their keister with just a tap of a stick. That comes later. But right now for us, we're just gathering the mana. And we're instructing our basic self to have a reserve, a surplus, more than it needs, We want now to direct it to our higher self. So visualize a silver cord, a silken thread, if you will. This is made out of what we call akka, shadowy, stretchable substance that connects the basic self to the higher self and the middle self to the basic self. Point of reference here, we're not going from the middle self to the high self. This isn't parent to grandparent. This is child to grandparent. This is where a lot of our work in the Huna takes place. So we're now sending that energy to the higher self, and we're knowing that the higher self will utilize that energy in the best way possible for you. And as part of this exercise. So when you're complete with that, let me know. Doesn't have to take but more than a moment. Okay, everybody's pretty much complete. Good. Everybody's still collecting mana, sending it? I don't hear anybody. Are they all muted? I guess they're all muted.
I'm good.
We're good. Okay.
I'm getting it. Yeah.
Good, good,
Good, good.
good, good. Got a good there. Now, it's not uncommon. When I get down here tonight, I'll probably go for a walk. Kind of like having a great alchemical session. You get full of juice and you want to get rid of some of it. You gotta let some of that go. But now that we've done that, let's take our pendulum again, similar to what we did before. And this time, we're saying from our middle self to our basic self to our high selves. I said higher selves. We thank you for this opportunity to experience what it's like to increase our mana. This is our desire. So let's just start measuring that with our pendulums. And let's go for 2 minutes. And count the cycles and then record them. Don't be concerned about less, more, or what have you. There's no right or wrong here. It's all about getting to know, become intimately involved, engaged with our vital force. Okay, we're just about to the 2-minute mark. And once you've got to that point, just go ahead and record that number, and let's have a little discussion about what you learned, what your results were. Hey, Patrick, what did you get?
I got 132 the first time, and it was fairly slow to get going. It actually didn't oscillate back and forth as much as it started out in a circle. And the second one, I got 166. There were much bigger swings, but I got a bidirectional swing for about the first 45 seconds. In other words, it was like, in fact, now that I think about it, it was almost exactly northeast or north, south, east, west in the swings, and it would reverse. And then it went to bigger circles. So it was faster and bigger. And
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Way there too.
Pardon?
And I sent you some juice along the way too.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? I'm unmuted, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so at first it was 55, and that's what I meant by it was faint. It wasn't really working at first. And then it went through 175 for 2 minutes. So it was over double. And then it just kind of stopped at about 2 minutes. And maybe because my intention was 2 minutes, but it just kind of stopped.
Yeah, that was your direction, your intention. So
Yes,
you could give it specific parameters.
Mhm.
Okay. Good job. Who else?
I think I might have discovered something. Mine was very similar to Pat's, and the second time it was spinning, and I found it amusing. So I chuckled. I was laughing, and it almost jumped out of my hand. The power of it increased so much. So laughter, does that create mana?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Laughter is the best medicine, right?
Always.
Yeah, I saw it for myself. It was very fun.
Well, for me, the first time, it was close to 80, and I felt my hand burning. But I was losing counts of the track of the counting. I think I was trancing myself. So the second time, it was huge, big circles. And actually, I didn't know what to do. So I was stopping it and starting from the beginning. And it was just going big circles. And it went over 100 per minute. We're taking per minute, right? If you do 2 minutes, it's over 200.
Right.
But I was losing again. I was counting 1, 2, 3, and I was starting counting again. So that's what happened.
Right.
And my hand was cool. It wasn't burning anymore.
Oh, it wasn't. Excellent. It wasn't burning. Okay.
No. So cool.
For me, the the first time it was like I had like 80 in a minute. I just did it for a minute, and the swing was about the diameter of my hand. It went about the width of my hand.
Wow.
When I did the second time, after we did the little visualization, it was 134, and it went way out, about double the diameter of my hand. So
Excellent. Excellent.
yep, different, yeah.
Good result. All good results.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I went from 30 to 78.
Okay.
Yeah.
They doubled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a measurable And if we went 30 to 31, I'd say, oh,
Almost triple. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Great job, David. Anybody else?
Yes.
I
Hi.
keep
Sorry.
getting-
Yeah, I can't get the video to come on, but the swing was much better. I loved the notion of gathering mana. I thought that was delightful. Made me think of like bees gathering pollen. And I did send some over. I loved the notion of it going up to my higher self, and then from my higher self to your higher self, or to whoever needed healing and had asked for a healing. So I really appreciate learning the technique to move the energy up that way from higher self to higher self. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Marty's muted up there. Martha Seaton. I wonder, did she leave us? Maybe.
Mine doubled also.
Yours doubled? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. I was kind of real quickly throwing out about the Hawaiians, again, being an island nation, island culture, Polynesians in general. They had to work out a lot of their disputes in practical ways. They all needed each other. So if you got in a battle, you didn't want to kill the guy who was raising your crops or the person who was making your clothes or what have you, but you may still have a disagreement. So they used to create these short sticks, and they would pray mana into the stick. Like, where can I send my mana? Well, I'd ask my higher self to send it to the stick. And I'd go into the field of battle, and I would throw it at the person I was having the disagreement with. And the belief, and it worked, if they got hit with the stick, they'd pass out. They'd go unconscious if there was a huge charge of the mana in the stick. Not unlike a lot of our martial arts that we see in the world today. They kind of understand these principles. I study Aikido, and we call it the ki, K-E. We don't call it mana, we call it the ki. And it's the universal life force that we work with. So what you experience is your higher self sent back the mana doubled, called mana loa. Double means more power, more energy, more healing. And again, I really do like the idea that we're kind of turning it over. You know, they say let go and let God. Another metaphor for let the higher self take care of this. Oh, by the way, I mean, we're talking about your higher self. Okay, and this is, I think, the real secret that was guarded by these 12 tribes of Israel, these ancient cultures. And they coded it into the gnosis, they coded it into all the various religions and what have you, there to be rediscovered at an appropriate time. But this is powerful. You know, it's simple in its essence, but we are a basic self, a middle self, and a higher self, and we are evolving. And we know that in the Huna, that one day my basic self will become a middle self. And at that point, my middle self will pair off with another, probably female, candidate. Some people call this the wedding, the soulmate thing. We also know that there's an in-between. When that graduation of the middle self happens to go up to the higher self, there's an in-between, sort of an intern apprenticeship thing. I don't know, maybe you come back and teach alchemical hypnotherapy or something, I don't know. But little humor there. But you know, you're still incarnating if you want. We believe at the plane of the higher self, we still have a body. We're part of this body, but we're very rarefied. We're very like spirit material. We're not dense physical matter. But this is where we can do instant healing, folks, with the technique you just learned. Now we can use breath work. You can go for that jog. You can work out on an elliptical, what have you, rower, all these great things. Just understand that you now have a purpose for yourself. I'd start with myself. You know, there's 5 things that are hardwired into all of us. First one, survival. So I'd use mana for survival always, right? And then I'd use mana for things like if I go to see for my annual physical and my mana charge is real good, I'm probably going to have a great result. And if my doctor happens to say something that should cause me concern, I won't be concerned because my mana level is up. We find people where their mana level is real low, being on antidepressants, going for different treatments, trying to, artificially get their mana back up. And I'm not saying this stuff isn't good or doesn't help, but the natural path is using, the inner work, soul within, soul without, this type of thing. Give you an example. I knew a woman who lived in an abusive relationship for 65 years with the same man. She loved him, he loved her, but this is how they functioned together. And she would go away on a middle self level. Those of us who knew her said, oh, she's going to Happy Land. But she'd be standing in the closet talking to her clothes or talking to the wall. Middle self, low level of mana, whoop, gone. Whenever I would come around, or people like myself, she would come out of the closet, grab a hold of us and say, get me out of here. And we'd say, where do you want to go? I don't know, anywhere but here. And she was also taking mana from us. And we understood that. She needed that mana to help lift her up. So I really enjoy the Huna work because, like so many of the other traditions, disciplines that I've been fortunate enough to be involved in, we all promote, learn how to do it for yourself. It's fine to have a helper, but know how the mechanics work and start doing, help your therapist, help them to help you. Kind of that type of thing. Give a healing, get a healing. So we're going to experience that right now. I'm going to ask you to take your piece of paper out again. And I want you to write the name of someone down there that you want to send a healing to. Keeping in mind, it's going to go to their higher self. Somebody other than yourself. You might want to think about this for a moment, or maybe somebody comes to your mind right away. And we've just run over the hour a little bit, but this will wrap up with this. Okay, you got that. Now, underneath that person that you want to send that healing to, again, through their higher self, your higher self to their higher self, write down something that you desire. It could be increased income. It could be better vision. It could be a healing of a relationship. It could be getting that car that you just really always wanted to drive. It could be, you name it. But go ahead and write that down under the name of that person you want to send a healing to. And by the way, that person you want to send a healing to, hopefully it's a heartfelt connection. Someone you know, someone that you have some concern about. Everybody got that? And yes, you can put the lottery down. I mean, if you win, let me know. Then I'm going to write a book. Okay. So now we're going to do the deep breathing. And one more time, we're going to collect mana. But this time we have a purpose. We're collecting mana, healing energy to help someone else. And by the way, that includes us. But we're putting them in the first position. We are now imagining we are on our way to Lourdes, France, or any other holy place you want to go, any pool of Salome, whatever. And we're going to go there and we're going to have that mana there. We're going to visualize that person's higher self being able to accept and receive the increased mana and use it whatever is the best way for that person. Now it's rare, but you understand sometimes people will make their transition, it happens because that's their next step and they're just hanging on. We understand that. More than likely, if it's not anything that dire, we'll see a great improvement. That's what we expect for that individual. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to inhale through my nose. And, expanding the abdomen. We kind of all know this, right? Hold it 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds, whatever is comfortable. I take my tongue, this is me, and I put it to the roof of my mouth, the tip of my tongue. Ah, I got nice teeth. I spent a lot of money on the teeth. Ah, something like this. And I breathe out. I exhale around my tongue. I learned that from some Tibetan guys that were hanging out. Anyway, but I breathe in through my nose. It's collecting the mana. It's like a hissing sound. And I feel the air going around my tongue. Now, you don't have to do it that way. Maybe you just want to have a little pursed lips. It's like, you can feel like a pressure. You're blowing out forcefully. You're forcefully blowing it out. And visualize it now. It's going up. However you want to visualize that. That breath is going up. That mana is going up to the higher self. I hear the ukuleles already. It's good. So we'll do that 4, 5, 6 more times. Now, we should not be getting lightheaded. We'll keep our balance, keep our equilibrium. Practice makes perfect. The more we do this, I personally found it to be very relaxing, very enjoyable. I would imagine it would be possible to become a little bit lightheaded. So always use common sense, just as long as you're comfortable. The higher self will know, and it'll let us know when it's time to stop. So now that you've done that, I'm going to say, Amama uanoa lele wale akuala. Amama uanoa wele lele akuala. One more time. Amama uanoa wele lele akuala. And that's a way to close. It's a Hawaiian, it's actually the end of the Lord's Prayer. And it's a way of closing. And we can say in English, may the rain of the many blessings come upon us now. So I'd like to ask all of you in your own way, just join with me and say, and may the rain of the many blessings come upon us now. I say us because we're all joined right now. We are all part of the Poa Makua.
May the
Hello?
rain of many blessings come upon us now.
That's right. Again, you can individualize it and say, may it come upon me now. But because we're working as a group, and this is a group exercise, now, do we all kind of get why we ask for somebody else first? Pretty basic healing technique. Ask for somebody else first. It statistically has been proven. Studies have been conducted at Lourdes, France, of all the people who go there. And of all the people who experience miracles, well, in Huna, that's just kind of what we do. But all the people who experience that over there asked for somebody else, not themselves. Even if they went up there on crutches, poor, blind, you name it. They asked for somebody else before they asked for themselves. Statistically, all those miracles are performed by those people. So we always ask. And then, hey, by the way, I'm here too. So you can work it both ways. But it's just a suggestion that you may try that out and find that it's like an attitude of gratitude. Hey, theirs is larger than mine, that type of thing. So, okay, why did we ask you to do your signature? I don't know if I should tell you this, but I think I will. Okay, in psychometric analysis, what we know to be true is when someone writes their name down in ink, or signature in ink, my basic self went out and collected all those signatures and hooked them all up with the pull-on Makua. We call that braiding the cord. And so we've had this, if you can imagine, tree of life going up between all of us, regardless of the distance between us, with all our individual octave cords have been braided. And the basic self is a really interesting character. We train our basic selves to do a lot of stuff for us. Psychic readings, intuition, I mean, a lot of things. I set my basic self out and, hey, give me this information. Tell me when it's gonna rain. I was in Walnut Creek, you all know where that is, right? Walnut Creek, some of you know where it is. I'm playing basketball, this was about 14 years ago, and a friend of mine said, we haven't had rain, it's a drought. When is it gonna rain? I stopped and I said to my basic self, would you go tell me when it's gonna rain? We'll find out. Basic self came back and said, in this many days. I lived in Southern California in LA. I went back to LA, I got a phone call on that day. I'd forgotten all about it. My friend said, my God, it's pouring, we're having a flood. I said to my basic self, good job, thank you. So there's a part of this that we all utilize, that we know in the Huna we train, that one of its functions is to work as like a servant. They work for us and with us. The reward one day will be to become a middle self. Any questions? Well, thank you for being here tonight. I'm having a class starting January 2nd at 8 p.m. It's the fundamentals of Huna. We took 13 weeks and we squeezed it into 12 weeks. I came kicking and screaming on that, but it'll work because we're now in the age of technology, right? And speed readers. But a lot of this will all be covered again. Sorry. If you can, join me with Bridges on January 2nd for 7 fun weeks. I'm muted. Am I muted?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
We heard you loud and clear. Great class. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, sir. Be seeing you in March.
I'm looking forward to it.
Mahalo nui loa. Big blessing
Wow.
Thank you so much.
to all of you. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Michael. What a fun class.
Expect good things because
Yeah,
they're coming.
I
I love
can
it.
tell.
You
I
too.
gotta say this one. The last person I worked with on this, they said, look, I haven't talked to my mother in 14 years. I really want to heal that relationship. And I said, okay. So we combined alchemy with the principles we just discussed here. And they saw me as an alchemical hypnotherapist. And we used alchemical techniques, which again, remember this kind of came 35,000 years ago. David brought us a bigger version, a newer version, built on principles like this. Anyway, we did the piece. The next day I get a text. Guess who called me? My mother. We haven't talked in 14 years. My mother said, we got to heal this thing. What do you think? So
So often, it's so common in my work, Michael. Absolutely. The spiritual plane unites all of us.
everybody. Yeah,
Amen.
everybody.
Amen.
Amen.
Roger that.
Roger that. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, you guys.
That's-
Thank you
that's
so
Hawaii.
much for coming.
Merry Christmas, Hawaiian. No, it's great. It's good stuff. And I encourage all of you to, get a good night's rest and stay grounded. Drink clean, clear water. And remember to check in with your different parts. Thank them for the great job they're doing. I don't know. What can I tell you? I'm going to be 72. I'm just thrilled. I mean, now I go to my doctor voluntarily because they can't find anything wrong. And they're like, you got to have something wrong with you. And I said, why? They said, well, we're not making any money on you. It's kind of a joke, but it's true, you know. And my wife and I started our 52nd year in marriage. My lovely bride. She's an alchemist and a great healer, and just a joy to be with. And oh, here's a quickie for you guys. I'm blabbing now. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll just tell you a little bit
People
about
can
myself.
leave if they need to. Yeah.
Okay, you know, Lou, my wife, she goes and gets these Louise Hayes cards. And I got to tell you, I mean, we got cards on, you know, Indian this and totem that, and, you know, inner child, and whatever, but I've never seen Louise Hayes cards. So my wife goes one morning, we're having our morning coffee, have our little ritual to start our day, and she, you know, get up about 4:30, and 6 hours sleep for me is a long night's sleep. So there's a lot of mana, a lot of energy running around. My resting heart rate's like 54. So anyway, I get up there and I'm, you know, she's doing the card thing, and it pulls out, I'm with the love of my life, right? This is like the card, like the soulmate. And I said, oh, that's nice. And she smiles. She goes, well, that's us. You know, and I said, oh, okay. Well, 36 hours later, she gets me. Same ritual. She said, you try it. I'm like, well, okay. I don't know how many cards are in the deck, 50, 60. So I shuffle them, and I'm one of these people, I shuffle cards. I'm just not going to sit there and grab whatever. Although I don't play poker too much anymore, because I can tell people where the aces and the kings and the queens are all out of the deck. And I've gotten in trouble for that. Anyway, actually, it's my basic self that does that. So remember I told you I send the basic self, it tells me. But anyway, I picked out a Louise Hayes card, and it's the same card after I've shuffled the deck over and over and over. And I looked at her and I said, you made your point. So to me, it's kind of cute, but I think Spirit talks to us, and it uses any tool it can to give us its message. So why overthink it? Thank you. Okay, I got it. And then we went for our 3-hour walk. But yeah, so what Huna's done for me is allowed me to start a new business 14 years ago. It was my retirement gig. And I ran a counseling practice alongside my business. I retired from my counseling practice 2 years ago. People quit coming in the office. They just started walking up to me on the street and saying, take my hand, I need a healing. People I didn't even know. I'm going into surgery tomorrow, can you heal me? I'm in somebody's home doing my other business, and they said, look, I know you're done with why you came here, but I have stage 4 cancer. Would you please pray with me? I know you can heal me. Well, we just, the wife and I, and she works with me, we just kind of got used to this. And we go, okay, all right, whatever. You know, we're using Huna and alchemy. Not necessarily telling them all the details, but we're good listeners. Right? That's something I always wanted to share with everybody, that it's something we all can do. We all do it, and it's a blessing. Again, my doctor's not too happy, and my pharmacist is even more unhappy. But you know, so be it. And the thing that I really enjoy is just what we're doing tonight. I think it's super special, and hopefully you got some new information, or you were reminded of things you already know. So thank you for allowing me to be part of your evening.